Hi, my name is Rachel Paxton, and today I'm going to show you how to can pulled pork. What will you get out of this class? You will learn how to make and can pulled pork. I will lead you through the process step by step. I also have included the recipe, a canning supply list, and an altitude reference chart that come along with your course materials that you can download and print for future reference. You will also gain the confidence you need to try more pressure canning recipes on your own. Who am I? My name is Rachel Paxton, and I'm a freelance writer and mom to 5 children, ages 28 to 6. In the picture here, you'll see a picture of me and my husband Dave. We've been married for 20 years, and these are 3 of my children. Zachary and Christian are twins, and they are 10, and Trenton is 6. Our daughters are not in the picture. They're ages 28 and 26. I am also the owner of the website creativehomemaking.com, and I've been canning for more than 20 years. This recipe is really easy. All you need is a pork butt and some barbecue sauce. It can be store-bought or homemade. For 18 pounds of meat, you need about 5 pounds or 80 ounces of barbecue sauce. This is what the pork butt looks like. And this is the barbecue sauce I used, but you can use any kind. This is a 5-pound container. For supplies, you're going to need a pressure canner, a ladle, a jar lifter, and a wide mouth funnel. This is what a pressure canner looks like. If you're familiar at all with canning, there are 2 different kinds of canners. There are boiling water canners that you can use to make jams and jellies and to can fruit, and then there are pressure canners that are made for canning meat and vegetables and soups and things like that. There's more than one kind of pressure canner. These instructions are for a dial gauge pressure canner. You see the little gauge on top of it. This is the most common pressure canner that you'll find in the store. It's important that you know that you need to use a pressure canner to can meat. Some people think it's okay to can meat in a boiling water canner, and that's just not true. The reason is because in a boiling water canner, you can only get the temperature of the water to 212 degrees, which is the temperature at which water boils. And that temperature is not hot enough to kill the bacteria in meat and vegetables. So a pressure canner uses pressure to make the temperature go up to at least 240 degrees, and that is a hot enough temperature to kill the bacteria. So that is why you need to use a pressure canner. Now, you don't need to have a pressure canner and a boiling water canner. You can use your pressure canner to do jams and jellies also. So if you're going to just buy one, then I would get the pressure canner. You can get these on Amazon for about $80, and I'm sure you can find them at Walmart too. This is what a jar lifter looks like. You use it to take your jars in and out of the canner. And a wide mouth funnel is a special funnel that will sit in your jar so you don't have to hold on to it while you're putting stuff in your jars. Okay, you want to cook your pork butt for, the 18 pounds needed about 6 hours to cook. I cooked mine in a turkey roasting pan, an electric one. You can cook this in the oven. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that you want to cook it until the meat completely falls apart. Then you'll know that it's done for sure, and it should come apart really easily with a fork. So for 18 pounds, it takes about 6 hours, but it's not going to take that long if you have a smaller roast. After it's done cooking, you want to just right in the pan there, you can shred the meat with 2 forks until it's nice and stringy like you would like to see your pulled pork. And then next, add the barbecue sauce until it's the desired consistency. You can add some water to it if it seems a little too thick, but it is not totally necessary because we're going to be adding some water to the jars too. So you want it to be saucy and not too dry. But you don't have to put in a specific amount. Next, you want to sterilize the jars, rings, and lids in the dishwasher. 18 pounds of meat makes about 14 pints of pulled pork or 7 quarts. I used the pints, and so I had 14 jars. And something else I didn't mention, you don't have to can the meat immediately after you make it. A lot of times I will cook the meat and put the barbecue sauce in it one day, and then I'll put it in the refrigerator and then take it back out the next day to can it. There's nothing wrong with doing this, and it helps you not have to spend the entire day canning. The main thing to know is that you do need to heat the meat back up before you put it in the jars. You don't want to put it in the jars cold. So I sterilize my jars in the dishwasher. I get them nice and hot and clean until I'm ready to use them. I've have the lids in the bottom and the rings on top. Next, you want to fill your pressure canner with about 3 inches of water. With a boiling water canner, the water has to be above the jars when you put the jars in, but that's not true with the pressure canner. With the pressure canner, the water does not have to go over the jars. The main thing is that you don't want the canner to run out of water while it's cooking, because it's dangerous if it dries out while it's cooking. So 3 inches of water will generally make sure that you don't run out of water, and I've never had that happen, so that should be safe. Next, you want to ladle the pulled pork into the hot jars, then add some hot water, leaving 1-inch headspace. The headspace is particularly important when you're pressure canning. The headspace is the amount of room between the top of the meat and the top of the jar, and if you don't leave enough room, the mixture will expand a lot while it is cooking or while it's canning, and if there isn't enough room, it can make your jar explode, and you don't want that to happen. So you need to leave 1 inch space in between, and that's generally the bottom line on the jar right before the meat. Next, you want to wipe the rims of the jar with a damp paper towel. This is important because you want your jars to get a good seal, and they will not seal if there's any particles of food or dirt or anything on top of the jar. So you want to make sure to wipe those off before you put the lids and rings on. So after you put the lids and rings on, you want to put them in the canner and process them for 70 minutes for pints or 90 minutes for quarts at 10 pounds of pressure. And depending on what altitude you're at, if you're above 1,000 feet in elevation, you need to adjust your pressure and your time accordingly. So there's a chart included with your course materials that tells you how to adjust your pressure for your elevation. So this is for elevation 1,000 and below. I've marked some of the features on the pressure canner for you because this is important when you start processing. The round thing on top of the pressure canner is the dial gauge. That tells you how much pressure your canner has reached. In this recipe, you want to use 10 pounds of pressure. And so the first thing you want to do is after you put the jars in the pan, you want to put the lid on it, and there's an arrow on top of the pan that shows you where to line it up so that it'll go down, and you turn it so that it locks. So you want to make sure the lid is locked on tight. So the first thing you're going to do is turn your temperature on your stove all the way up to high, and the water is going to start boiling really good. And you'll see in the picture where it says vent pipe and pressure regulator, you want to take the pressure regulator off of the vent pipe. And as the water starts boiling, you'll see steam coming out of the vent pipe. Now, that's how you're getting the pan ready to build pressure, and you need to let steam come out of the vent pipe for 10 minutes before you start timing your recipe. So after the steam has been coming out of the vent pipe for 10 minutes, you'll actually be able to see it coming out. You want to put the pressure regulator back on the vent pipe, and when you do that, that will start building pressure in your pan. And so after you put the pressure regulator back on, in a minute or so, that lid lock that it right now is flush with the lid will pop up, And when that pops up, you know that the pan is under pressure, and the marker on the dial gauge will start moving. So you want to watch the marker and wait until it gets to 10 pounds of pressure. And at that point is when you start timing your recipe. And for this recipe, it is 70 minutes for pints or 90 minutes for quarts. Now this part is very important. If you need to watch your dial gauge carefully, as soon as it gets to 10 pounds, you want to turn your temperature way down. Like for mine, I had it all the way turned up to high. But as soon as it reaches 10 pounds, you want to turn it down in between medium and low. And you still want to watch it, because if you don't, the pressure will continue to build, and you do not want the pressure to go above 10 pounds. So manually adjust the temperature on your stove until it stays at 10 pounds of pressure. If you turn it down too much and the pressure falls below 10 pounds, you have to start your timing all over again after it goes back up to 10. So you want to make sure it stays close to 10, either at 10 or just a little bit above, but you don't want it to go below. And another thing about that is if you have a ceramic stovetop, you're going to have a really hard time with this. I tried this once on a ceramic stove, and those stoves, the temperature fluctuates in order to keep a constant temperature on the stovetop, and you will see your pressure fluctuating up and down and up and down, and it is really hard to regulate. So pressure canning is not recommended on ceramic stovetops. You can do it, but you have to stand there the whole time and watch it, making sure that the temperature or the pressure doesn't go below 10 pounds. So hopefully that made sense. After you've timed your recipe, in my case, it was for 70 minutes for the pints. Then you just turn the heat off and let the canner just sit there. And after the pressure releases out of the can, or out of the canner, the lid lock will go back down. So it'll be flush with the lid again. So after that goes down, I'd let it sit for another 20 minutes or so after that. Then you can take the lid off and remove the jars. Never remove the lid before the lid lock goes down, or that's when you can have it explode because the pressure is still built up in it. So the lid lock needs to be down before you open it. So when you open it, you may be surprised to see the water look like this. And if it does, that's totally fine. What happens is a lot of the liquid has come out of the jars and into the pan, and it's totally fine. It does not mean your jars did not seal, so don't worry if your water looks like this. That's also one of the reasons we put additional water in the jars, because you're going to lose a lot of the moisture during the canning process. So remove the jars from the counter and set them on a towel on the counter. Let the jars sit until they cool. You'll notice that the liquid in the jars will still be boiling when you take it out of the counter, and that's okay. It's really hot. Just be careful not to touch them. Let them sit until they cool. The jars will likely already be sealed when you take them out of the canner. They often seal in the canner when you're pressure canning, but if they're not sealed, they should seal as they cool off, and you should hear a pinging noise. To know if the lid made a good seal or not, you just take your finger and push it down in the middle of the lid, and if you can push down and it pushes back up again, then it is not sealed. It should not give at all. It should be flat. So if it is sealed, you can store it in a dark, cool place for 1 to 2 years, and some people say you can store it for even longer than that. And if it is not sealed, that is totally okay. You just have to put it in the refrigerator and eat it within the next week. But it is still good. You just can't store it long term. So that's about it. I hope I didn't forget anything. Hopefully you have the confidence now to can some pulled pork. I know this is a favorite for our family. We like to take this camping or get it out when family comes over. If you find that your meat is a little dry when you take it back out of the jar, don't worry about it. Just add some extra barbecue sauce to it so that it's the consistency that you want, and it'll be just fine. It's delicious, and I hope you think so too. We'll see you next time.